Welcome back. I'm John, my Championship correspondent Pascal Lemaire to preview the first leg of the playoff semi-final between Ipswich and Norwich on Saturday. Pascal, obviously it's a massive game in that part of the world, probably the biggest game Ipswich game for 10 years. Massive for the supporters, massive for the town, that part of the world. Incredible. Let's start with Norwich. Probably enter the playoffs as the favourites to go up.
Yeah, I think they are the top seed in third place because they beat Fulham on the final day and Middlesbrough couldn't beat Brighton at home. So, you know, it started the final day that Ipswich and Norwich would be playing each other. They were fourth and fifth, but as it turned out, they sort of swapped and went third and sixth. So they still play each other. Like you say, it is just a huge fixture. Arguably the biggest ever East Anglian derby between the two sides. You know, certainly, like you said, Ipswich's biggest game for 10 years. They haven't been in the playoffs for 10 years. It's been sort of 10 seasons of mediocrity. And, you know, the job Mick McCarthy's done in the last 2 years is fantastic. But Norwich, like you say, they will start the playoffs as the favourites to go up. Middlesbrough stuttered into the playoffs. You know, Brentford, they're the surprise team in there. They're certainly a dangerous team, but I think Norwich, you know, you'd say that Ipswich are probably the weakest team and Norwich the strongest. So certainly you'd expect Norwich, just on form and the quality in their squad, to be able to progress from the semi-final and then get to the final. But, you know, it was a solid way for them to finish the season. You know, a 4-2 win over Fulham. Bradley Johnson, 2 more goals for him. He scored an own goal as well, quite a funny own goal. But, you know, the 2 goals for him, that took him up to 15 this season, and he's never scored, I think, more than 7 in a season before that. So he's just had a fantastic campaign from central midfield. You know, there's no midfielder in the whole division with any more than him. I think you got the same as Matt Ritchie, you know, Bournemouth player, one of the other standout players this season. So he's had a fantastic campaign. He scored in the second game of the season against Ipswich, so he's certainly used to the big games and certainly stepped it up in that game against Ipswich. And, you know, you look at Norwich, they at one stage, you know, Alex Neil, when he first came in and they went on that winning run, it looked like they'd be pushing into the top 2, but in the end they couldn't quite do it. Before their 4-2 win over Fulham, they only picked up 1 point from their previous 2 games before that. So in the end, they fell just short of the automatic promotion places. But considering where they were under Neil Adams before Alex Neil came in, you know, it's been a really good second half of the season from where they were, and they've done well to get third in the table. And you look at the team news coming into this game. I think the big thing for them is they're missing Lewis Grabban. You know, Gary Hooper. You know, they've sort of rotated as strikers and Cameron Jerome as well. They've sort of rotated the 3 of them as striker. But Grabban, he's got a great record against Ipswich this season. Scored in both games against Ipswich, but he got himself sent off in the penultimate game up at Rotherham. He punched a player just completely unnecessarily off the ball. 3-game ban for him, so he misses both legs of this game. He'll be back for the final if Norwich get there, but him missing will be a blow, so they'll probably start Gary Hooper up front, and he's a quality player, Gary Hooper. He's sort of dipped in and out, but on the whole, he's a really good championship striker. And you look at what Norwich do, they're a fantastic away team. You know, they had no team in the sort of whole league had more points than them away from home. They haven't lost any of their last 11 away games, so they'll certainly feel confident going to Portman Road. And you know, I think they'll certainly want to, if the fans, they'll think back to the last time Norwich were in the playoffs. It was 2002, I think, when Norwich were in there. They got to the final. I think it was at the Millennium Stadium when Wembley was being built, and they played Birmingham in the final and lost on penalties. So Norwich's memories of the playoffs certainly aren't very good, because I think it was Andy Johnson might have scored the winning penalty in that tie, and certainly not good memories for Norwich in the playoffs, and they'll certainly want to put that right here against, you know, their biggest rivals.
As for Ipswich, snuck into the playoffs on the final weekend of the season, lost at Blackburn, managed to get in on goal difference.
Yeah, it was a very nervy day for Ipswich supporters. You know, all they needed was to go up to Blackburn and get a draw, but you know, they certainly had the toughest fixtures out of any of the 4. There was 4 sides competing for 5th and 6th place, and you know, Derby, they had Reading at home, Brentford had Wigan at home, Wolves had Millwall at home. So you would have expected all of those 3 to pick up wins, but in the end, Derby losing 3-0 at home to Reading, it was an astonishing result. I don't think anyone really saw it coming. Reading, they haven't won any of their previous 9 games, so that was a real surprise result, and that's what got Ipswich in the end. They only snuck in on goal difference because they finished 4 goals better off than Wolves. In the end, Brentford finished with a better goal difference than them, so they got the 5th place. And I think Ipswich fans, given, you know, they've lost their last 4 games against Norwich, you know, I think Ipswich probably, it's a massive derby, but I think Ipswich fans probably would have preferred to avoid Norwich and get Middlesbrough, because they beat Middlesbrough at Portman Road quite convincingly earlier on in the season. So I think they would have rather played Middlesbrough, but in the end it's Norwich, and they certainly need to improve their performances from the derbies this season. They didn't threaten Norwich in either derby really this season, didn't score in either game. It was 1-0 at Portman Road back in August, and then 2-0 to Norwich at Carrow Road in March. So they want to improve on that, but you know, in Dale Murphy they do have by far the best, well, not by far the best, but probably the best striker in the league this season. 27 goals he's got, which is 6 more than anyone else, 6 more than Troy Deeney, who some people regard as the best striker in the league. But Murphy got 2 in the Blackburn game. The first one was absolutely fantastic. A first-time volley from a corner inside, I think it was 76 seconds, I think it was, and got them off to a great start, but then they conceded some poor goals. You know, they're generally considered to have one of the better defences in the league, Ipswich, but 2 goals from set pieces they came from. The third one was a little unlucky. Sort of Mings tried to head it out. It hit his own player, then rebounded back to Gestead, who poked it in. And Murphy scored from the penalty spot to give them late hope of getting a draw. But in the end, the defeat was enough to get them in. It was certainly very nervy, but they did get in the end. And I sort of mentioned before that Norwich have the best away record in the league, but Ipswich have the best home record. Well, no side, them and Middlesbrough, they've got the same record, 50 points from their home games this season. So you sort of got the best home team in the league going up against the best away team in the league. So certainly a good game for them. I talked about Norwich's playoff record. They've only been in the playoffs once before, lost in the final, but Ipswich's record is not great in the playoffs. They've only got to the final once. They did win that year in 2000 to go up to the Premier League, but in the 6 other times they've got to the playoffs, they've lost in the semis every single time. So Ipswich have great memories of the playoffs, neither did Norwich, and it is a huge game for both sets of supporters. It should be a fantastic atmosphere at Portman Road and Carrow Road, both legs, and it's just a massive game.
You mentioned it's going to be a great atmosphere, you're going to be there yourself. Obviously it's a massive game for both sets of supporters. What's your score prediction for this one? It's
a tough game to call. Norwich, they do have by far the better record in recent games between the two. They've won the last 4 games, the last 4 Old Farm derbies, by an aggregate scoreline of 12-2. So they've really dominated Ipswich in the last few times. They've got the bragging rights at the moment, and Ipswich want to put that right. But you do think that Norwich do have more quality, and I think Ipswich will want to they just won't want to make it. They won't want to get blown away. They want to go to Carrow Road, in with a chance of getting there. And I think they need a bit of luck. They need to Ipswich need to get the rub of the green. Hope that Norwich, aren't there. If Norwich are at the top of their game, they should probably blow away Ipswich. But if they're not, Ipswich will need a bit of luck, and I think they might just be able to get a draw out of this. I'm going to go 2-2.
Sports, I'm going for a 2-2 draw.